As he entered her, she arched beneath him like a willow. Melanie just dips out. As soon as it's over, she's like, bye, bitches. I don't want to be near you. Fuck you. But Michael finally decided that he'll be a defense witness, kissed her softly on the mouth, and walked away. Yeah, you're not getting jack shit from Melanie. I don't see it happening. She might smack you in the face if you try to ask her, knowing who you is, lady. How is Melanie gonna take this? Hello again, and welcome back to another episode of our book club series. So, if you're new here and you don't know who I am, my name is Brooke. I have different types of content on my channel. What you are watching is our book club series. We are reading The Pact right now by Jodi Picoult. We read chapters of the book together, and then we discuss the characters, the drama, and our opinions and theories about what we think might be going to happen. So if you enjoy books and book discussions, then stick around because you will definitely enjoy this type of content. If you want to catch up to where we're at right now in the book and the discussion, I have a playlist on my channel called Book Club The Pact, where you can go and watch all of the videos from the beginning until now, in order from start to finish. If you just really want to cringe, the playlist is called Book Club The Pact. You can also search the hashtag Book Club series and they'll all pop up that way as well. Or if you prefer to just watch the last few videos leading up to this one and then jump in from there, you're welcome to do that as well. However you choose to catch up, we would love to have you join in with us. I always do a quick recap of the last few sentences that we read in the last video, just so that everybody's on the same page and we all know what's going on. So other than that, we are on reading 20. This is reading 20. The last one was reading 19, but I was having a rough time of it, so I wasn't going to go back and edit that out because it was already like, getting that video up was already just a lot. I'm going to go ahead and get started. What do you guys think about my outfit today? And like the hair and what? I mean, I didn't do shit with my hair, but like just the whole get up. Is it too much boobs? Is there such a thing? You're right. There's not. When we ended last time, Michael and Gus are now having secret weekly lunch dates. That was hard to say. It was the end of one of Gus and Michael's lunch dates. So Gus is like leaving in a hurry because she's having cognitive dissonance because Gus and Michael have gotten closer. They're having these lunches and there's some kind of weird romantic thing going on between them, which is just like all kinds of insane right now because we know why, right? We know why that's insane. We talked about it last time. But anyways, so Gus and Michael are getting closer. There's like this weird ass romance developing. And so Gus is like leaving the lunch date in a hurry because she's having this cognitive dissonance. She's feeling guilty because Michael, her newfound friend, does not know that Chris, her son, was in fact not whenever all this shit went down, whenever his daughter Emily died, and Chris was also supposed to die because they were going to do it together, right? Chris was not ever going to off himself, and now Gus has known that and does know that, but they were just having this conversation about it. She knows that her son's attorney is going to lie on the stand about this whole Chris actually was not going to off himself, and again, because that's part of the whole defense. That's part of their whole defense. It's a lie, basically. So anyways, Gus has this in the back of her head that her son's attorney is going to lie on the stand. And now she's feeling guilty for knowing that. And she's like, in front of hanging out with Michael, Emily's dad. And so she's having all these like weird thoughts about it, basically. And she's feeling guilty. So their secret lunch is ending, and that's where we're picking up right now. So basically, she's like rushing off, trying to leave. She's like, yep, I gotta go. I'm feeling weird, basically. So then Michael's like, then why are you rushing off all of a sudden? Gus looked at the edge of her plate. I don't tell James that I'm meeting you for lunch. Do you tell Melanie? No, Michael admitted. I don't. Why do you think that is? I don't know, Michael said. Gus gently pulled her hand away from his. Neither do I. Yeah, anyways, and then last time we were like, yeah, you do. Y'all both know why you're not telling the significant other, because this is a terrible ass idea, that's why. Okay, so now we're moving on to the next section. Fuck, that was hard to explain. Goddamn, why? James sat down behind his desk and picked up the pink telephone message slip that his secretary had given him. Palme d'Or, the restaurant was called, and it was 40 miles into the middle of nowhere, although it had been given a 5-star rating by most travel and restaurant guides. Of course, that was practically guaranteed a fixed price menu. Pay $75 a head and get whatever they feel like serving you that day. Sighing, James peered at the number of the restaurant and reached for the telephone. It was Kate's 15th birthday, and she had chosen the place, and he wasn't about to let her down. He had, in fact, been very solicitous. This is a new word for me. He had, in fact, been very solicitous of Kate since Christmas. They'd gotten into a routine of staying at the dinner table after all the dishes were cleared and just talking. Kate, unlike her mother, was actually interested in the cases and operations that James had undertaken that day. James listened to Kate's chatter about boys, her fervent desire to have her ears pierced, her mistrust of algebraic proofs. He fell in love with his daughter all over again. He would watch her night after night and think, I still have all this. Hello, yes, he said, when a voice answered at the other end of the phone line. I wanted to make a reservation. You do serve lunch as well as dinner. Excellent. Yes, next Saturday. The name is Harte. Harte. He tapped a pencil against a stack of files on his desk. Oh, we're a party of 4, he said, and then winced. 3, he corrected. Make that a party of 3. He hung up the receiver, thinking of all the times over the past few months when he'd forgotten and had looked into the back seat of his car, expecting to see Chris's long legs folded up, or had gingerly opened Chris's bedroom door late at night to check on him sleeping. A party of 3. Some party. Aw. Yeah, we haven't really, let's pause here for a second. We haven't really seen much of James's, point of view. So this book kind of jumps around from each character's point of view. We get to see, what each character's thinking. And so this is the first time in a while that we've gotten to see from James's point of view. So I kind of like that. I kind of like that it's showing, how he's also struggling through this. For those that don't know or have just gotten here or have forgotten, James is Chris's dad, who's in jail awaiting the trial of his girlfriend Emily's murder. And James here is his dad. Okay. Melanie thunked a bowl of soup in front of Michael and sat down across the table, lifting up her spoon and beginning to eat without saying a word. So, he said bravely, what did you do today? Melanie's eyes slowly came into focus. What? I asked what you did today. She laughed. Why? Michael shrugged. I don't know. Polite conversation? We're married, she said flatly. We don't need to talk to each other. Poor Melanie, she's going through it, man. She's really going through it. And I just hope she doesn't find out that Gus is having weekly lunches with Michael, you guys. I can't handle it. I hope she doesn't find out about that. She's already going through enough, we don't. Okay, all right. We're married, she said flatly. We don't need to talk to each other. Michael stirred the soup, feeling the small resistances of overcooked celery and carrots. He hesitated. He'd been about to say that he'd gone to jail to visit Chris, but realized that was not information he was ready to reveal. I ran into Gus today. We had lunch. Oh, that's a first. That's the first time. Okay, pause. So, Melanie, she's just kind of in this cloud of despair right now where she doesn't give a shit about Gus or Chris or any of those people because the only thing she can think about when she thinks about them is her dead daughter. And she's just she's upset and she's bitter and she's pissed the fuck off and she has every goddamn right to be so. So anyways, so she doesn't know. What I was going to say is she is completely unaware that Gus and Michael are having these weekly lunches. Okay, so this is the first time Michael has even brought up Gus at all in, we don't know, weeks, months, however long, in forever. This is the first time Gus has been brought up. So I don't know where this conversation is about to go. And maybe it'll go well. We don't know. I'm reading this along with you guys, so I don't know. But I'm interested to see how this conversation is about to go. He'd been about to say that he'd gone to the jail to visit Chris. Oh, yeah. And also, so we know that Michael has also been going to visit Chris in jail just because he wants somebody to talk to. Because obviously he can't talk to Melanie. She doesn't want to talk to anyone, right? So he's just feeling like he's trying to get through it the best he can. And for some reason, we don't know, everybody grieves differently. Visiting Chris in jail and just being able to talk to somebody about all this, I guess, is helping him, has made him feel better. But he has not told Melanie that he goes to the jail to visit Chris, because I think he's afraid of, like, her getting pissed off about it. Like, he doesn't know how she's going to react if she finds out that he's been going to visit Chris in jail. So he's just kind of not told her at all, just avoids it completely. But anyway, so it says, he'd been about to say that he'd gone to the jail to visit Chris, but realized that that was not information he was ready to reveal. I ran into Gus today. We had lunch. He said it lightly, but even to Michael, his words sounded too casual. So offhand, they were clearly practiced. She's doing well, he added. Melanie went slack-jawed. So she's like, just like, what? Melanie went slack-jawed, and a fine sheen of soup glistening on her lower lip. You had lunch with her? Yes, Michael said. So what? So I can't believe you had lunch, willingly, with her. God, Mel, she used to be your best friend. That was before she killed... Oh, sorry. That was before her son killed Emily. You don't know he did, Michael said. And who might have told you that? Melanie snorted, her voice thick with sarcasm. Did she cry right in the middle of her salad? Or did she wait until she was finished eating to tell you the prosecutors made a terrible mistake? She didn't do anything, Michael said quietly, even if he could not bring himself to say it. It still wouldn't be her fault. Melanie shook her head. You're a fool. Don't you understand the lengths a mother will go to protect her child? She glanced up. Her nostrils flared. That's what Gus is doing, Michael, which is more than I can say for you. So she feels like he's betraying his own daughter, basically. Because she said, you know, don't you understand the lengths a mother will go to protect her child? She's talking about Gus protecting Chris. And basically, she feels like, probably like, I gotta sneeze, sorry. She feels like maybe Gus is playing Michael, if you will, to protect Chris, her son. That's what I'm speculating here. But anyways, she's like, you're a fool. Don't you understand the lengths a mother will go to protect her child? She glanced up, nostrils flared, her lips white. That's what Gus is doing, Michael, which is more than I can say for you. So she feels like, Melanie feels like Michael is betraying Emily, his own daughter. The next section. The plan, the following Saturday, was for Kate and James to ride together to the Palme d'Or and have Gus meet them after her visit with Chris. So they don't know that Gus is having weekly lunches with Michael either. So Gus's family, Kate and James, don't know that Gus is having weekly lunches with Michael. So nobody knows what the fuck. Well, Melanie does now. But anyways, so and have Gus meet them after her visit with Chris. James and Kate had been sitting at the tastefully appointed table for a half hour. Though, when the waiter came over for the third time, perhaps, he said, you would like to start without the rest of your party? I've been there. You guys want to go ahead and order? You guys started waiting yet? Can we get this show on the road? You gonna order? You gonna order for her? How about we order for her? Perhaps, he said, you would like to start without the rest of your party. No, Daddy, Kate said, frowning. I want to wait for Mom. James shrugged. Fritz shrugged. We'll give it a few more minutes. We'll give it a few more minutes, he said. He slouched in his seat, watching Kate play with the delicate edges of the orchid that graced the center of the table. She's usually late, Kate said, almost to herself, but usually not this bad. She's probably at lunch with, Michael. Suddenly, Gus barreled into the tiny dining room, her camel's hair coat nearly flying off her back into the arms of the maitre d' as she hurried toward James and Kate. I am so sorry, she said, leaning over Kate. Happy birthday, sweetie, she said, giving her a kiss. James, she greeted formally, slipping into her chair. And then, to the waiter, just water, please. I'm not hungry. Yeah, we know you're not hungry because you just fucking ate with Michael. Just water, please. I'm not hungry. How could you not be hungry? James asked. It's lunchtime. Gus looked into her lap. I ate something on the way here, she said, dismissively. Now, she smiled at Kate, tell me how it feels to be 15. Daddy says, Kate beamed, I can get my ears pierced if it's okay with you, today, after lunch. What a terrific idea, Gus said, turning to James. Can you take her? He did not hear Gus at first because he was reveling in the smells that she had brought into the stuffy dining room. The wintergreen scent of the snow outside, the apple of her hair conditioner, and the lingering smell of perfume. But there was something else, something deep and tropical that he could not put a name to. What was it? Can you? Gus asked again. Can I what? Take Kate to the jeweler. Oh my God. Take Kate to the jeweler. Her ears, Gus said, fiddling with her own lobes. So Gus is asking James to take Kate to get her ears pierced. And he's like zoned out, like, why does my wife smell weird? So all James can pay attention to, he's like zoned out now, hardcore, is the smell of his wife. I don't know. There must be something different and he's catching on to it, whatever it is. So Gus is like, can you? Asking James to take Kate to get her ears pierced. Can I what? Take Kate to the jeweler. I can't say this word. Take Kate to the jeweler. Her ears, Gus said, fiddling with her own lobes. Her face pinkened. I can't. I'm going back to see Chris again. So she's going back to see Chris again. You were just there, James said. He would not have believed it possible, but Gus's cheeks burned redder. They have extra visiting hours today, she said, smoothing her napkin onto her lap. I told Chris I'd see him again. James sighed and turned toward Kate. We'll go to the jewelry store after lunch, he told her. He faced his wife again, intending to ask why she'd bothered coming all the way to the restaurant when she was just going right back, but was stopped again by the smell of her. Something was different, he realized. After she visited Chris, she always came home smelling of jail. Stale and confining, a scent that stayed in her clothes and her skin until they were scrubbed. She had been to visit Chris today, she said. But that smell was missing. There was something else in its place, that exotic element which James suddenly recognized as the sweet, heated scent of a lie. So James is on to her. That's all we know. James is on to her. He don't know what the fuck she's doing, but he knows she's doing something. All right, next section. Chris slouched in his chair, trying not to be pissed off at his mother and failing miserably. It wasn't like he looked forward to her visits. He tried to be as nonchalant as possible about them, because if he didn't, he'd get himself psyched. Then all the other days in between weren't quite so bad. But all the same, he'd been in his cell today at 10:45, which was when she always got there, and he waited and didn't get the call. And didn't get the call to come down until nearly 2 o'clock. What happened to you? He muttered. So he's looking forward to, getting out of his cell for a little bit and seeing his mom, because she comes at the same time every week. So of course he's excited. It's he's in jail. He's in prison. It's miserable. It's horrible. There's no natural lighting. It's loud. There's constantly metal doors and shit slamming. Constantly guards and asshole people yelling and people doing stupid shit. And yeah, it's awful. It's awful. And so, he's gotten to the point where he looks forward to his mom coming to visit him every week, because he gets out of his dreadful cell pod situation and he gets to speak to somebody else, and it's his mom. So it reminds him of being out of jail. So it's just, poor kid. He's upset about it. So what happened to you? He muttered. I'm sorry, his mother apologized. We took Kate out for a birthday lunch. And now he gets to hear about birthday lunch, which he can't go to. That's so awful. Oh, God, that's so hard. I'm sorry, his mother apologized. We took Kate out for a birthday lunch. So, Chris said sullenly, you could have come before that. Actually, Gus said, I had a prior engagement. A prior engagement? Chris scowled, slouching even further down. What did she think this was? Some 19th century drawing room? What the hell kind of prior engagement was more important than making time to see your son, who was rotting away in jail? Chris, his mother said, touching her hand to his forehead. Are you sick again? He shied away from her palm. I'm fine. You're not acting fine. Oh, really? How am I supposed to act when I'm stuck in jail for 3 more months before a jury gets to lock me away for the rest of my life? Is that it? Gus asked. You're getting nervous about the trial? Because I can tell you. What, Mom? What can you tell me? He turned his face away, disgust distorting his features. Absolutely nothing. Well, Gus said, Michael and I both think Jordan's got a very good case. Chris laughed outright. By all means, I'd listen to Michael, the grieving father of the victim. You have no right to say that. He's going out of his way to help you. You ought to be grateful to him. For bringing charges against me in the first place? Okay, I don't think that's fair. It's not really Michael that's bringing the charges. Like, there's a dead girl, and it would be the state bringing the charges against him. I don't think Michael's the one that really headed that one up, you know what I'm saying? For bringing charges against me in the first place. He had nothing to do with that. It's up to the state. See? Exactly what I said. It's up to the state, not the Golds. Jesus, Mom, Chris said, stunned. Whose side are you on? Gus stared at him for a moment. Yours, she said finally. But Michael finally decided that he'll be a defense witness, which is a very good thing. So Michael, apparently, has told nobody but Gus that he's going to be a witness for the defense, for Chris, for her side. Did we know that? Because if we did, I didn't remember. But anyways. But Michael finally decided that he'll be a defense witness, which is a very good thing. He told you this? Chris asked, guardedly optimistic. Today, Gus said. Oh my God, this is huge. So, how is Melanie going to take this? How is Melanie going to you guys? Oh my God. They're going to get something. I'm sorry, but he's a dumbass. What are you doing? Oh my, okay, I'm sorry. I don't know. I can't judge because I'm not in the situation, but oh my God. Okay. So we just found out that apparently the reason Gus had a prior engagement today was because Michael was letting her know that he's going to be a witness for the defense, for Chris, for her son, for that side, for the defense. These names are really getting me today. I don't know how Melanie is going to take this. He told you this? Chris asked, guardedly optimistic. Today, Gus said. At that, Chris's eyes narrowed with doubt. When? He asked. I saw him this morning, before we took Kate out, Gus said, her chin coming up. We've been meeting on the days when we're both visiting you. Mm-hmm. Chris's shoulders stiffened as he realized why his mother had been late visiting today, and he turned away, feeling oddly light-boned and jealous. What do you talk about? He asked quietly. I don't know, Gus said. You, our families, we just talk. She felt the faint outline of her heart in her chest, fist size and smooth-edged, as it pounded a little harder. There's nothing the matter with that, she said, defensively, before she could remember that she had nothing to answer for. Chris stared at the scarred table for a long moment, during which the inmate beside them left. Gus kept her eyes trained on her son's face. You obviously have something you want to say, she announced. Her son turned, his expression carefully blank. Could you ask Dad, Chris said, if he'd come to visit? So this is the first time Chris has even, acknowledged his dad. What the fuck does that mean? I think Chris just put it together that Gus, his mom, and Michael are kind of they kind of like each other, basically. And I think Chris has just now put this together. And just then, he decided to ask. This is the first time Chris has even mentioned his dad since being in jail. pretty much. And he's like, as soon as he finds this out, he's like, could you ask Dad if he'd come visit? Y'all think he's going to spill the tea? Do you think Chris is going to spill the tea to his dad? All right, next section. I wonder if working with you is going to make me old and fat before my time, Selena said, her mouth rounding beneath an oily triangle of pizza. Oh, pizza sounds so good right now. Jordan looked up, surprised. Am I that much of a slave driver? No, but your eating habits are awful. Do you even know what a salad is? Sure, Jordan said, smiling. It's that stuff they invented a sneeze guard for. He pushed aside a piece of pepperoni. For Thomas, he explained. Selena's eyes darted to the closed bedroom door. Oh, he hasn't been ruined by croissants? No, in fact, he lost some weight over there. Said the food was too greasy for him. Jordan grimaced at the pizza, soaking through the cardboard box. But if American junk food's what brought him back, it's okay with me. Oh, he would have come back, Selena reassured. He left his Nintendo behind. Jordan laughed. You're so good for my ego, he said. Yeah, I think Jordan and Selena like each other. Jordan, the attorney, and Selena, his assistant. I think they like each other. Like you don't do a fine job yourself, Selena said dryly. You pay me to investigate, not ingratiate. Jordan agreed. So what have you done lately to earn your keep? Selena, having finished interviewing the immediate world for the defense, was now working her way through the people on the prosecution's witness list, so that Jordan would know what he was up against. I really don't expect any surprises from M.E. or the detective, she said. And the kid they are putting on the stand, Emily's friend, should be suitably terrified and not a hell of a lot of use to Delaney. The only wild card is Melanie Gold, who I can't get close enough to interview. Yeah, bitch. Melanie Gold ain't gonna give you shit. Like, good luck with that. Yeah, you're not getting jack shit from Melanie. I don't see it happening. She might smack you in the face if you try to ask her, knowing who you is, lady. Okay, anyway, sorry. The only wild card is Melanie Gold, who I can't get close enough to interview. Well, maybe we'll get lucky, Jordan said. Maybe she'll have a certified breakdown in the next few months, and Puckett can rule her mentally incapable of taking the stand. Selena rolled her eyes. I'm not holding my breath, she said. Neither am I, Jordan admitted, but stranger things have happened. Selena nodded and propped her feet up beside Jordan's on the coffee table. Stocking feet, she said absently, wiggling her toes. When I was a kid, I used to think the phrase was stocking feet. No wonder you went into PI work. She nudged his sneaker. Why did you? She asked. Go into PI work? Jordan said, grinning. You know what I mean. I went to law school for the same reason everyone else goes to law school. I had no idea what to do with my life, and my parents were paying. Selena laughed. No, I can figure out why you became an attorney, so you'd get paid to have people listen to you argue. I want to know why you switched sides. From the AG's office, you mean? Jordan shrugged. Pay sucked. Selena glanced around the well-worn house. Jordan liked his creature comforts, but was never going to be ostentatious. The truth, she pressed. He swung his eyes toward her. You know how I feel about the truth, he said quietly. Your story, then, Selena said. Well, Jordan answered, as a prosecutor, you've got the burden of proof. As a defense lawyer, all you have to do is introduce a teeny doubt. And how can't a jury have some doubt? I mean, they weren't there at the scene of the crime, right? So basically he's saying it's easier to be a defense lawyer than to be the attorney general. To be on the prosecution side. You're telling me you switched sides because you wanted the easy way out? I don't buy it. I switched sides, Jordan said, because I didn't buy it either. The idea of there being one correct story. You have to believe in that to prosecute. Or what the hell is your case all about? Selena shifted, turning onto her side so that her face was only inches away from Jordan's. Do you think Chris Hart did it? She put a hand on his arm. I know you don't think it makes any difference, she said. You'd still defend him. But I just want to know. Jordan looked down at his hands. I think he loved that girl, and I think he was scared shitless when the police found them. Beyond that, he shook his head. I think Chris Hart is a very good liar, he said slowly. Then he looked up at Selena. But not quite as good as the prosecution thinks. I think, my opinion, y'all can let me know your theories and opinions in the comments below. So I think what he's saying is that he doesn't believe 100% what Chris is telling him, like Chris's defense or whatever, the whole story, Chris's story, but that he doesn't think that Chris, like, outright, like, murdered her in cold blood either. Next section. It was Thursday, a quiet day in the cemetery, so that the voice of the rabbi seemed to carry, floating up to the branches of the trees where the finches watched their button black eyes, their beaks closing around the words as if prayers were as nourishing as thistle seed. Michael stood beside Melanie, his dress shoes no match for the cold that came up through the packed earth. How, he wondered, did they get the stone in? And for the 50th time that morning, his eyes wandered to the brand new pink marble headstone on Emily's grave, the purpose for this unveiling ceremony. The stone itself did not say much. Emily's name, the dates of her birth and death, and slightly below that, in large letters, a single word, beloved. Michael did not remember ordering that phrase from the stonecutter, but he supposed it was possible. It had been so long ago, and his mind had been disordered. Then again, it would not have surprised him to learn that Melanie had had that part added. He wondered, though, if it had been her idea to put the slightest of spaces between the E and the L, or if that had been a slip in the carver's hand, so that you could not be sure if the word was a description of Emily's beloved or beloved. A directive issued on her behalf. Beloved or beloved. A directive issued on her behalf. He listened to the guttural run of Hebrew coming from the rabbi and the soft sound of Melanie's tears. But his eyes kept roaming, wandering, until he saw what he had been waiting for. Aw, shit. Coming up over the rise of the hill was Gus, dressed in a voluminous black parka and a dark skirt. Her head bowed into the wind. She met Michael's eyes squarely and took up a spot slightly behind him, on the other side of Melanie. Michael took a step back, and then another, until he was standing beside Gus, hidden beneath the blowing folds of her coat. He touched her gloved hand. "You came," he whispered. Damn, they're not even trying to, like, be subtle, are they? Goddamn. He's just holding her hand at this fucking memorial and everything. Lord. What the hell? Okay. You came, he whispered. "You asked," she murmured in response. And then it was over. Michael bent down and picked up a small rock, which he laid at the base of the new headstone. Melanie did the same, and then briskly walked past Gus as if she were not there. Gus knelt and found a smooth white pebble, walked toward the grave, and set her offering beside the other two. She felt Michael's hand on her arm again. "I'll take you to your car," he said, turning to let Melanie know where he was going, but she disappeared. Gus waited while Michael talked to the rabbi and handed him an envelope. Then she fell into step beside him, neither one speaking until they reached the car. "Thank you," Michael said. "No, thank you," Gus said. "I wanted to come." She glanced up at Michael to say goodbye, but something about his face, the lines at the corners of his eyes, or maybe his shaky smile, made her open her arms and let him step into them. When Michael pulled back, her eyes were as damp as his. "Saturday?" he asked. "Saturday," she said. He looked abstracted for a moment, as if struggling internally, and then he apparently came to a decision. Still holding her loosely, he leaned down, kissed her softly on the mouth, and walked away. What? Okay. Sure. They don't even care. They don't give a shit. Okay. I'm sorry. Let me just collect myself. So they just had this like memorial service for Emily because I guess that her big ass gravestone, her fancy ass gravestone came in. So they're having like this little service for her. And Michael wanted Gus to come because, you know, they're having this little love sesh, whatever, between the two of them. So I would guess Melanie probably didn't know that Michael invited Gus, if I had to guess. But anyway, so they're having this little memorial ceremony because her new headstone came in. And so Melanie just dips out. As soon as it's over, she's like, bye, bitches. I don't want to be near you. Fuck you, basically. So Melanie just, like, leaves. And it's just Gus and Michael now at the gravesite or whatever. And they hug. And then Michael kisses Gus on the mouth. Just outside. Just outside. Out and about in public. Like, okay. Anyways, alright. So I don't know. We don't know what's going on Saturday, though. They just said... So, like, they were saying bye to each other. They give each other a hug. And it's like, Saturday? He asked Michael. Saturday, she said. Gus. He looked abstracted for a moment, as if struggling internally, and then apparently came to a decision. Still holding her loosely, he leaned down, kissed her softly on the mouth, and walked away. Alright, now we're moving on to the next section. Gus pulled over the car a quarter mile from the cemetery. It was entirely possible that in the strain of the moment, and an unveiling was certainly stressful, Michael had not really thought about what he was doing. Then again, Gus would have staked her savings on the fact that Michael was clearly aware. So Gus is like collecting herself, like what the fuck just happened. She was emotionally needy, she knew that. God, it had been months since she'd slept with James. Longer since she'd really talked to him. And at the same time, she'd lost her husband. Her best friend had turned her back. Having some adult who wanted to talk about Chris was seductive. I mean, guess you never know until you're in that situation, huh? But she wondered, feeling slightly ill, whether she'd looked forward to seeing Michael because she could talk about Chris, or whether she'd been using Chris as an excuse to see Michael. They did speak of Chris and Emily and the trial, and it was good to get all of that off her chest, but it didn't account for the way her hair on the back of Gus's neck stood up when he looked at her and smiled, or for the fact that she could close her eyes now and picture his face in a variety of expressions with the same recall that she had once had for James. She had known Michael for years, knew him nearly as well as she knew her own husband. It was an attraction born of close quarters and false familiarity. It meant, she told herself, absolutely nothing. Yet, she drove home, one-handed, the fingertips of her free hand gently touching her mouth, her tires sibilant on the smooth road, whispering, "Beloved." Next section. Although neither of them had spoken of it, ever since James's forthright decision not to testify as a witness for Chris, Gus had been sleeping in a different room. Chris's room, actually. There was a comfort in feeling the mattress curved beneath her, where it had spooned her son's body for years. In smelling the rank collection of athletic gear fermenting on the floor of the closet, in waking up to the sound of an alarm tuned to his favorite radio station, all of which contributed to the illusion that he was still just as close to Gus as any one of these things. It was James's late night at the hospital. Gus heard him coming in, the heavy click of the front door, the rhythm of his footsteps on the stairs. There was a slight creak as he checked on Kate, asleep hours before, and the sound of water rushing through pipes as he turned on the shower in the master bath. He did not come to talk to Gus. He did not go near Chris's room at all. She slipped out of the bed, her feet silent on the carpet as she shrugged into her robe. It was strange seeing her bed. The sheets were clean and smooth, but lapped, untucked from the comforter like a lolling tongue, clear evidence that she wasn't sleeping there. James liked the sheets free. On Gus's side, they always stayed tucked in, the line of demarcation shifting subtly night after night. The water in the shower stopped running. Gus imagined James stepping out of the shower and wrapping a towel around his waist, his hair standing on end from a vigorous scrubbing. Then she pushed open the bedroom door. James turned to her immediately. "What's the matter?" he asked, certain there was no other reason, barring emergency, for her to be there. "Everything," Gus said, as she untied the terry cloth robe and let it fall. She stepped toward him hesitantly, laid her palms flat on his chest. With amazing force, James's arms closed around her. He slid down the length of her mouth, his mouth on her breasts and her ribs, and rested his cheek on her belly. She tucked him upright and led him into the bedroom. James fell back upon her, his heart pounding every bit as hard as hers. Gus ran her hands over the joinings of the muscles in his arms, the light furring of his buttocks, the smooth divots at the bottom of his spine, all the places she'd needed to touch and commit to memory again, to memory. As he entered her, she arched beneath him like a willow. James thrust again, and Gus bit down hard on the skin of his shoulder, afraid of what she might say. And then, as quickly as it had escalated, it was over. James, straining above her, their hands ripping at the bedcloths and each other, still in silence. With a shy smile, James went off to the bathroom, nail marks raking his back. Gus patted her breasts, rubbed raw with the beard stubble, and looked down at the bed. It was a mess, sheets tangled, quilt discarded. There was even blood on the sheets from James's back, and they'd knocked over a nightstand lamp. It did not look like the site of a reconciliation, or a bower of love. In fact, Gus thought, it did not look like anything so much as the scene of a crime. Alrighty. Moving on to the next section, Jordan unsnapped the rubber band from the small packet of mail. At the letterhead of the Grafton County Superior Court, he felt his pulse pick up. He ripped open the envelope to find the letter sent by the Honorable Leslie Puckett in response to the pretrial motions he and Barry had filed. The prosecutor's motions, seeking to exclude 2 of his expert witnesses and the pro-choice English essay Selena had found, had been denied. His own motion of suppression to bar the interview Detective Marone had done at the hospital had been granted, on the ground that Chris Hart had not felt he was free to leave the interview, and thus had been formally questioned without being Mirandized. It was a small victory, but it made him smile. Jordan shuffled the letter to the back of the pile, walked back into his office, and closed the door. So the sections are getting smaller. Uh-oh, I think that means shit's heating up. When Chris saw his father standing stiffly behind the metal bridge chair down in the visitors area, he froze. He had told his mother that he wanted James to come, but he hadn't really expected his wish to be granted. After all, when Chris had banned him from visiting months before, oh, that's what happened. Okay, so Chris said he didn't want his dad to come, like months before this. I forgot about that. Okay. So that's why James never came. But anyways, oops. So James didn't go visit Chris in jail because Chris didn't want him to. After all, let's see, when Chris had banned him from visiting months before, they all knew he was just taking the blame for something James would have done anyway. "Chris," his father said, holding out a hand. "Dad?" They shook, and Chris was momentarily shocked by the heat of his father's skin. He remembered in a quick flash that his father's palms had always seemed reassuringly warm, on his shoulders in a duck blind, or bracing his arms as he taught him to shoot. "Thank you for coming." James nodded. "Thank you for having me," he said formally. "Did Mom come with you?" "No," James said. "I understood that you wanted to see me by myself." Chris had never said that, but that was how his mother had interpreted it, and probably it wasn't a bad idea. "Was there something in particular you wanted to ask me?" James said. Chris nodded. He thought of many things at once. "If I go to prison, will you help Mom get on with her life? If I ask you, will you tell me to my face that I've hurt you more than you've ever thought possible?" But instead, his mouth opened, rolling over a sentence that surprised Chris as much as it did James. "Dad," he said, "in your whole life, haven't you ever done anything wrong?" James covered his startled laughter with a cough. "Well, sure," he said. I failed biologically the first term of college. Oh my God, what the fuck did I just say? I failed biology. Sorry. I failed biology the first term of college. Nala! Shut up! Alright. I failed biology the first term of college. I shoplifted a pack of gum when I was little. And I crashed my father's car up after a fraternity party. He chuckled, crossing his legs. I just never came close to murder. Chris stared at him. Neither did I, he said softly. James's face went pale. I didn't mean, that is... Finally, he shook his head. I don't blame you for what happened. I don't blame you for what happened. But do you believe me? James met his son's gaze. It's very hard to believe you, he said, when I'm trying so hard to pretend it never happened. It did happen, Chris said, his voice choked. Emily's dead, and I'm stuck in this stinking jail, and I can't change what's already been done. Neither can I. James clasped his hands between his knees. You have to understand. I grew up being told by my parents that the best way to get out of a sticky situation was to assume it didn't exist. He said, let the rumors fly. If the family isn't bothered, why should anyone else be? Chris smiled slightly. Making believe I'm in a swanky hotel doesn't make the food taste any better here, or the cells any bigger. Well, James said, his voice softer. There's nothing that says you can't learn from your own children, too. He rubbed the bridge of his nose. As a matter of fact, now that you've got me thinking, there was one thing I've done in my life that was really awful. Chris leaned forward, intrigued. What was it? James smiled with so much of his heart that Chris had to look away. I stayed away from here, he said, until now. Aw, that's sweet. Steve's murder trial had lasted for 4 days. Steve's murder trial had lasted 4 days. His lawyer was a public defender, since neither he nor his parents could afford someone more glitzy. And although he didn't talk to Chris about his case, Chris knew that he grew more and more nervous as the close of the trial drew near. The night before the jury was supposed to return a verdict, Chris woke up to the sound of a slight scratching. He rolled over his bunk to find Steve rubbing a razor blade over the edge of the toilet. What the fuck are you doing? Chris whispered. Steve looked up. I'm going to prison, he said, his voice heavy. You're already in prison, Chris said. Steve shook his head. This is a country club compared to the state pen. Do you know what they do there to guys serving time for killing kids? Do you? Chris smiled a little. Make you the company whore? You think it's so freaking funny because you could be in the same goddamn boat 3 months from now. Steve was breathing harshly, trying not to cry. Oh. Sometimes they just beat you up, and the guards look away because they think you've got it coming. Sometimes they go as far as to kill you. He picked up the silver sliver of razor, a gleam in the half light of the cell. A gleam in the half light of the cell. I thought I'd save them some trouble, Steve said. Still muzzy with sleep, it took Chris a moment to understand what Steve was saying. You can't do that, he said. Chris, Steve murmured. It's about the only thing I can do. Chris suddenly remembered Emily, trying to explain to him how she felt. I can see myself now, she said. And I can see what I want to be 10 years from now. But I don't understand how I'm going to get from here to there. Chris watched Steve lift a shaking hand, the blade of the razor trembling like a flame, and he jumped off his bunk and started pounding at the bars of the cell, screaming to attract the attention of an officer and do for this friend what he had not done for Emily. So Chris just had a moment where, whew. So I guess Steve's trial's going on. Chris's roommate in the jail, right? And basically, he's just afraid of going to the state penitentiary because of how he's going to get treated, or how he feels he's afraid he's going to get treated. Because of why he's in jail, right? He's the one that shook his baby to death. Anyways, so He's just like, he wants to off himself. Because he's afraid of what's to come. And so Chris is like has like this flashback about when Emily was talking to him. I guess he feels guilty because he didn't save Emily. So he's gonna save Steve. He's not gonna just let this shit happen again. Anyway, so Chris suddenly remembered Emily, trying to explain to him how she felt. I can see myself now, she said, and I can see what I want to be 10 years from now. But I don't understand how I'm going to get from here to there. Chris watched Steve lift a shaking hand, the blade of the razor trembling like a flame, and he jumped off his bunk and started pounding at the bars of the cell, screaming to attract the attention of an officer and do for this friend what he had not done for Emily. Next section. Rumors flew through a jail, pervasive as gnats and just as difficult to ignore. By breakfast the next day, everyone knew that Steve had been taken to the suicide cell down in Maximum, where he was monitored by camera in the control room. By lunch, he was being led away by the sheriff to the courthouse to hear the jury's decision. A little after 3:30, one of the officers came into Chris's cell and started packing up Steve's things. Chris set down the book he was reading. Is the trial over? He asked. Yep, guilty, sentenced to life in prison. Chris watched the officer pick up the broken shards of plastic razor, the one Steve had pried apart for its blade. He pulled his pillow over his head, sobbing as he had not since the day he'd arrived in jail. And he did not allow himself to ask whether he was crying for Steve or for himself, for what he had done, or for what was certain to happen. I can't wait till they reveal what the fuck actually happened. Like, this is driving me nuts. Because obviously Chris feels guilty, but we don't know why or what he feels guilty for. It could be something like, you know, nothing is ever as it seems, right? Nothing, ever is what it seems. So, it's just driving me crazy. I just want to know why Chris feels guilty and what the fuck happened. Like, what really happened. It's driving me insane. Or is it driving y'all as insane as it's driving me? Because it's driving me crazy. We're going to end today's reading there. This was reading 20. So, what do you guys think? What are your theories? Who are your favorite characters? Who do you relate to? What the fuck do you think is about to happen? Put it in the comments. I love you guys. I love that you enjoy this as much as I do. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Tap the like and subscribe buttons and have a wonderful day.
How y'all feel out there? I'm light years, call me eons. When the snare kick in, the beat is neon. Lights, yeah, I'm feeling magnificent. Care less what I'm up against.